Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. I apologize in advance for how depressing this episode will be. Just not a lot of good news going on right now, and a lot of terrifying things happening. I do my best to mix in hopeful stuff too, but, well, this one's just gonna suck. Sorry. Shout out to our Tier 3 patrons, Peter Park and Shay Meehan, as well as all of our other patrons. You all are a bright spot in a dark time. Mayor Tubbs, founder of Mayors for a Guaranteed Income, has lost his re-election bid, attributed in large part to a disinformation campaign by his opponent and the GOP, smearing him as a corrupt politician. One more victim of partisan propaganda, it seems. Judging by the comments section, many Yang Gang have still not forgiven Tubbs for turning his back on Andrew in the primary. Frankly, they need to get over it. Tubbs is an ally now, and Mayors for AGI are the biggest basic income movement achieving actual implementation in the U.S. Hopefully this will not too adversely affect the group. The mayoral position switching parties is actually a very consistent pattern in Tubbs City. It has alternated consistently since 2005. U.S. Chapter 11 bankruptcies have surged to a decade high in the third quarter as stimulus dries up, according to a report from law firm Pozzanelli. Almost 40% of filings originated in the Southeast, especially from Florida, Texas, and Georgia, which are hit particularly hard by the virus. In some minor good news, Republicans have dropped their federal election lawsuits in the battleground states after judges dismissed their suits with prejudice in every case for lack of evidence or misrepresentation of the facts. Way to get a clue. In bad news, Trump is still refusing to concede and throwing disinformation tantrums on the daily. In fact, yesterday he fired Homeland Cyber and Infrastructure Security Director Chris Krebs for refusing to go along with Trump's voter fraud lies, after his department released a joint statement that this was the most secure election in U.S. history. Krebs also said, quote, "On allegations that election systems were manipulated, 59 election security experts all agree, in every case of which we are aware, these claims either have been unsubstantiated or are technically incoherent." End quote. But it's not about truth with Trump, it's about loyalty to the Fuhrer. Krebs' reaction to his dismissal for protecting democracy in America was to tweet, quote, "Honored to serve, we did it right, defend today, secure tomorrow." End quote. That is a civil servant to be proud of. The GOP, on the other hand, continues to prove their absolute complicity with Trump's attacks on democracy and the rule of law. You may recall that Georgia's Republican senatorial candidates, David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, called for Republican Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger's resignation after he refused to confirm baseless accusations of voter fraud. As the Georgia results have become increasingly clear, Republicans have unleashed intense criticism on the Secretary of State's office, accusing it, without evidence, of giving Biden the win through fraud. All Republicans representing Georgia in Congress also signed a letter to Raffensperger, criticizing the office for a series of supposed irregularities. Long before any of this, he withstood pressure from the Trump campaign to endorse the president. Raffensperger declined an offer in January to serve as an honorary co-chair of the Trump campaign. He later rejected GOP requests and demands to support Trump publicly. As the official overseeing the voting, he rightly believed that he should remain neutral. Georgia's Republican governor, Brian Kemp, did agree to be an honorary campaign co-chair, but it still did not save him from being included in accusations of coordinating with Stacey Abrams to make Georgia's elections less secure, a claim Raffensperger laughed out loud at as ludicrous given his history with Miss Abrams. On Monday, the Washington Post reported Lindsey Graham had phoned Raffensperger to see if the Secretary of State had the authority to toss out legally cast ballots. Graham has said that he was simply asking how the process works, but two members of Raffensperger's staff who were on the call told ProPublica that the Secretary of State's account was accurate and that they were appalled by Graham's request. Raffensperger also interpreted it as a suggestion that he should do so. 3 attorneys have filed requests with the Senate Select Committee on Ethics to have Graham investigated to determine if he was attempting to pressure the Secretary of State to dispose of ballots. They also demand clarity as to whether Senator Graham has threatened anyone with a Senate investigation of the Georgia vote tally or has taken steps to initiate such an investigation. As to how successful the GOP has been in its attacks on democracy, Reuters released a poll yesterday claiming that 52% of Republicans out of 500 respondents answered that Trump rightfully won the election. 68% expressed concern that the election was rigged. In other words, due to Trump and the GOP, over half of Republican Americans no longer trust the results of our election when it doesn't favor their candidate. When enough people no longer trust the results of elections, you no longer have a democracy. Reuters did not link the actual poll, so we can't be sure of the wording of the questions, but unfortunately, the claim matches what we're seeing everywhere else. In case you somehow don't care about the downfall of democracy and the rise of autocracy, to give more context to how much damage can be dealt by the culture of disinformation we're experiencing, a nurse made a Twitter thread recently on how depressing it is for her to see people dying of COVID in the hospital on a daily basis who, to their final breath, deny that the virus exists and spout conspiracy theories at the hospital staff. Quote, "The ones that stick out are those who still don't believe the virus is real, the ones who scream at you for a magic medicine and that Joe Biden is going to ruin the USA, all while gasping for breath on 100% Vapotherm. They tell you there must be another reason they are sick. They call you names and ask why you have to wear all that stuff because they don't have COVID because it's not real. And then they stop yelling at you when they get intubated. It's like a horror movie that never ends." End quote. Trump, the GOP, and right-wing media have created this death cult. More fundamentally, incentives in media and democracy have led to this. It cannot be allowed to continue. We need progress now. Unfortunately, Twitter has reversed course on attempts to mitigate disinformation with their newest feature, Fleets. Fleets are fleeting tweets, lasting only a short time before being deleted. It also happens to be a godsend for people spreading disinformation, hate speech, harassment, and about everything else that violates Twitter's code of conduct. Fleets allow for circumventing these measures while also erasing the trail of evidence. Not great. Hopefully they will account for this quickly. You can read more about the details at the link below. On a more positive note, I'm happy to say that it appears I need to clear up some misinformation that I've been spreading on the topic of faithless electors. Lawrence Lessig pointed out in an article that there is no real possibility of faithless electors at this point for two reasons. One, states have to decide ahead of the election if electors will follow the people's vote or not. And two, the Supreme Court already ruled on faithless electors and clearly decided that it is unconstitutional. Electors must vote with the will of the people, as Justice Elena Kagan put it at the time, quote, "Here we the people rule," end quote. So it seems that we can put to fear that rest, though we should still fear the fact that citizens are supporting the idea of faithless electors. As discussed prior, once enough people refuse to abide the law, it holds no power to stop them. If you need to convince some Yang gang to support the efforts in Georgia for a blue Senate, Yang put a clip of his recent Yang Speaks episode in which he explains why he thinks it is vital that we secure a Democratic majority in the Senate. It's basically all the same reasons I've been giving here. Share it around. Finally, if you're an artist in Canada or know one, the People's Commission on Basic Income wants to hear from artists on how a UBI would impact their life and work. Follow the link below to share your story. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Give your regards to Tubbs and thank him for continuing to work toward a UBI. Thank Krebs and Raffensperger for being patriots. Bookmark and share Yang's argument for a blue Senate. Don't forget to put in your half hour a day of phone banking or text banking to support the efforts in Georgia. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, or United Way. And don't forget to Yang Daily.